So if you're caught up on Moon Knight, you know all about the Duat, one of the many afterlives which exist within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. As Tawaret explains, the Duat is just one of the many interdimensional planes considered to be the afterlife to mere mortals. In today's video, I will explain each afterlife that we are currently aware of and how each functions within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. And as with all of our Marvel Cinematic Universe videos, I will not be discussing the afterlives from the comics, just the MCU. The first afterlife that we're introduced to is actually two afterlives, and they are associated with the Aesir, or more commonly known as the Asgardians, the godlike beings who once resided on Asgard prior to its destruction by Surtur. From what we know, the Aesir end up in one of two places, Valhalla or Hell. Valhalla was first mentioned by Volstagg and then later by Thor, who prays that his father arrives safely in Valhalla. To arrive in Valhalla, one must die honored, which seems to be the only caveat. Hell is the other option, as far as we know, for those who are not lucky enough to take their place within the halls of Valhalla. Hell is located in Niflheim and is where the souls of neither the honored nor dishonored reside. Being part of the 9 realms, Hell is located on the Yggdrasil and is visible during the Convergence, and it seems that Hell is a place that can be visited by the living and even escaped. Long before the births of Thor and Loki, their older sister Hela was imprisoned there by their father Odin, and eventually Hela attempted to escape, forcing Odin to send his greatest warriors, the Valkyries, to stop her. However, Hela killed all but one of the Valkyries and had to be stopped by Odin himself, who resealed Hela in Hell using the Odin Force. Upon the Allfather's death, Hela was no longer bound to the realm of the dead and escaped to Earth. Thor and Loki both mention Hell prior to learning of their sister, so it's a long-established afterlife in the MCU. But not all godlike beings are sent to Hell or Valhalla after death. The Ennead rule various afterlives that we've seen within the MCU, including the Ancestral Plane as well as the Duat. The Ancestral Plane is where those who worship Bast are sent upon dying. As T'Challa states, you reach out with both hands to Bast and Sekhmet, and they lead you into the Green Veld, where you can run forever. However, there seems to be a bit more to it than that, as Bast and Sekhmet are both Ennead and do not send their followers to the Duat, they must send them somewhere else, which we believe to literally be the astral dimension seen within Doctor Strange, as the visual effects artists who worked on Black Panther refer to it as the Astral Plane, and, it seems similar. Additionally, much like Hell, the living can also visit this afterlife, but not physically. Their astral form can be sent there when undertaking the ritual of the heart-shaped herb. The user is buried in the sacred city of the dead after consuming the heart-shaped herb, where their astral form can commune with the dead Wakandans, whose souls also reside there. While most Wakandan souls settle in the African wilderness within the astral dimension, not all of them do. Njobu settled in Oakland, and his son, Eric Killmonger, visited his father's spirit there after undergoing the heart-shaped herb ritual. Prior to the Ancient One's death, she and Doctor Strange communed in the astral dimension, but when her physical body died, her astral form disappeared. I'm not sure if this is because she went to pass on to a separate afterlife, or her astral form was sent somewhere more meaningful to her, like T'Challa and Killmonger. After obtaining the Darkhold, Scarlet Witch could astral project, and while in the astral plane, she heard the cries of her children. Whether these cries came from their souls trapped within this dimension or from the Darkhold itself is unknown, but it's interesting to point out nonetheless. While the Ancestral Plane and the Astral Plane may not actually be the same exact thing, there is evidence to support this idea, and they could be similar at the very least. So while Bast and Sekhmet have separated their followers from the other Ennead, the rest, as far as we know, still send their dead to the Duat, which is under the rule of Osiris, the leader of the Ennead. The Duat's true form is incomprehensible to the human mind, so the souls of the dead typically picture it as something more comforting or known to them. After arriving in the Duat, the dead's soul is greeted by one of the Ennead to guide them through the Duat and to weigh their heart on the scales of justice against the feather of Maat, or more commonly known as the feather of truth. If you are balanced, then you are ferried to Aru, or the Field of Reeds, where you spend eternity in paradise. If you are not balanced, you are dragged by the dead into the Duat sands, where you will remain frozen for eternity. Mark Spector and Stephen Grant are greeted by Tawaret, the goddess of women and children, who states that no one has arrived in the Duat for quite a while, likely due to the Egyptian religion dying out and the other Ennead, Bast and Sekhmet, taking their Wakandan worshippers to the Ancestral Plane. While Mark and Stephen's scales are unbalanced, they are given the opportunity to balance them by reliving their memories to reveal the truth and achieve full balance. But the Ennead aren't the only gods who guide their worshippers to the afterlife. The Loa do this as well. However, their afterlife isn't exactly what you'd expect. The Loa exist within the dark dimension and have limited control over it. Papa Legba is the guardian of the crossroads who monitors the earthly plane. If a living person finds themselves at the crossroads within the dark dimension, he allows them to escape through the gauntlet of transactions by giving up something precious to them. Tandy Bowen, also known as Dagger, gives up her Light Force dagger and is given a coin to pass through. If you are dead, Baron Samedi, the Loa god of the dead, claims your soul and you arrive within his realm within the dark dimension. Tyrone Johnson, also known as Cloak, is sent here after being engulfed by Dark Force energy. He's not yet dead, but he's dying. To save him, Tandy and Evita Busilier perform a ritual to send Tandy into the afterlife to bring Tyrone back and save him from Samedi. They give Papa Legba an offering to guide Tandy to Samedi's realm. Legba agrees and opens a portal for them, and then guides Tandy to Samedi. Much like the Duat, humans who find themselves within the regions of the dark dimension ruled by the Loa envision these realms in concepts that they can understand, such as record stores or malls or arcades. Despite Tyrone not yet being dead, Samedi claims he has the right to his soul, as Tyrone is in his debt. Tyrone cast all of his worries upon Samedi, who took them in exchange for his soul. However, Samedi offers Tandy the opportunity to win Tyrone's soul back if she can convince him to return to his body. While Tandy was close to saving Tyrone's soul back on Earth, Evita bound herself to Samedi, marrying him in a ritual which was a common practice for voodoo priestesses. Baron Samedi accepts Evita's life of servitude in exchange for Tyrone's soul and sends him back to his body. Similar instances occur within the Dark Dimension during the Runaways, which is ironic considering Caecilius did not believe in the afterlife, but that Dormammu could provide eternal life to the entire universe. As we find out in Doctor Strange, Cloak and Dagger, as well as the Runaways, those not guided by the Loa end up in the eternal hell of the Dark Dimension, which is where Caecilius ended up as a mindless one. Another afterlife that we know significantly less about is the afterlife believed in by the Ravagers. The Ravagers have their own religion with their own afterlife. After dying, Ravagers are given a funeral ceremony where they are disintegrated, and their ashes are spread across the cosmos, while the ships of other Ravager clans fire the colors. In death, Ravagers expect to see their loved ones again among the stars and to hear the horns of freedom. If one is exiled from the Ravagers, they are prevented from entering the Ravager afterlife as well, unless they can redeem themselves before death, as Yondu did. Souls claimed by the Soul Stone could also have their own afterlife, as seen during the events of Infinity War. Even Vormir itself could be considered an afterlife. I mean, Red Skull is kind of like a spooky specter, you know? Although, those snapped by Thanos had their existences erased. They weren't technically killed, so after disintegrating, their consciousnesses were destroyed. And when they returned, thanks to the Avengers, it was like no time had passed. They were gone, and then they were back. Finally, we have the Abrahamic religion's versions of heaven and hell, which is believed in by many religious practitioners within the MCU, such as Steve Rogers, Matt Murdock, Kamala Khan, and Mark Spector. Whether heaven and hell in this traditional sense exists within the Marvel Cinematic Universe remains to be seen, but the spirit of vengeance claims to be from hell itself, so it's certainly possible. And those are all the afterlives that we know of at this time. In the future, we'll probably learn more about the Duat, and we might even see Elysium during Thor: Love and Thunder, but that's all we know as of right now. Let me know down in the comments if I missed anything, or if you have anything to add to the conversation. Remember to like and subscribe, it does really help us out. Follow us on Twitter, and remember the motto, it's the afterlife over everything, and I'll see you guys next time.